All right. So we started. Again, I would like to welcome everybody to a third in a series of live webinars hosted by the Reflexology Association of California. My name is Dr. Spindelilus. I'm a traditional naturopath, a certified nutritionist, and a certified reflexologist. I am currently the sole healthcare provider at the Tree of Life Holistic Wellness Center. It is the largest naturopathic primary medical center in Northern California, strictly for naturopathic and holistic medicine. We currently have over 1,000 patients at the clinic, and they range from local to around the world. We treat everything from pretty much colds and flus all the way to cancer. This, as I said, is the third in the series, and today we're going to be talking about reflexology and cancer patients. I'm not sure who's been with us through the whole series. The first one was reflexology and case studies. That was more just to kind of introduce the general public to reflexology and how it can be used in a clinical environment on a basically lay type of level. The second episode was on reflexology healing techniques, and it was a little bit higher level, more for those that might actually be interested in the protocols themselves and had some training. All right, so what we're going to do, if you would, I'm going to try a little experiment here. We're going to keep everybody unmuted so you can actually ask questions as you would like during the program. If you could, though, while we're doing this, kind of keep the noise level down, paper shuffling, things like that, if you can, because it will come through across on the webinar. All right, okay, so as I said, this one is about reflexology in cancer patients. One of the unique things about the clinic that we are currently at is that, again, it is completely naturopathic and holistic. We include a wide variety of different modalities and protocols when treating our patients, cancer being one of the primary things that we do. It's not the only issue we deal with, but cancer is a significant one that we work with. All right. We do obviously natural medicines, herbs, vitamins and mineral therapies, things of nature, orthomolecular nutrition. We do nutritional therapy. We do physical therapy. You pretty much name it, we do it there at the clinic. We also do full things like labs and blood work and things of that nature. But we also incorporate reflexology. Reflexology we have found to be an excellent addition to the clinic. I think, as I mentioned one time before, a lot of places kind of wonder, why do you do reflexology? I actually learned a good lesson, fortunately secondhand, from another doctor years ago. His name was Dr. Christopher, and he was a world-known naturopathic doctor, and he ran a full clinic, something similar to what we did. And he had gotten into the tech. We have it. We at our clinic, we have ultrasound diagnostics, and we have EKGs, and you name it, we have it. But one day he noticed the power went out. And when the power went out in his clinic, all of a sudden he had lost all his diagnostic tools for the period of time that went out. And he thought, I will never be in that position again. So what he did was he immediately went out and started studying reflexology and found that reflexology was an excellent addition, because from a doctor's point of view, and again, I know that unless you are a licensed healthcare provider, you are not allowed to do diagnostics. But I can tell you that from a doctor's point of view, reflexology, while it is a wonderful tool to use in a mode of healing, it is also excellent for diagnostics. And I've had many, many times when patients came in and we would do a reflexology treatment on them purely for the sole purpose of finding out where the issue was. And it often ended up being other than where they thought it was. And of course, then we were able to back that up with labs and such. So that's one of the things that we really enjoy talking about during these lectures, is that what you're experiencing here today is reflexology that has been applied within a clinical environment, within a medical clinic, and with empirical evidence to back it up, labs and x-rays and ultrasounds showing the differences that even reflexology made. All right, well, we're going to talk about cancer today. All right, cancer is a fascinating subject to me. Unfortunately, I see an awful lot of it in the clinic. A little bit of the history of cancer and why this has been such a sad thing going on in the United States is back around 1900, it was only 1 out of 50 people were diagnosed with cancer. All right, now you can see that their diagnostic protocols were not as efficient back then, but to tell you the truth, Cancer has been around for thousands of years. It is not that difficult to diagnose cancer. So while they weren't maybe as good yet in 1900 as they are today, they still were very good at figuring out what was cancer. So back in the 1900s, 1 out of 50 people were diagnosed with cancer. By around 1972, 1973, when Nixon said, and I actually remember him saying this on TV, Nixon said, if we can put a man on the moon, we can win the war against cancer. And so they did. They started the war on cancer, and I think it was something like $36 billion they spent that year, which, you know, that's a lot now, but back in around 1973 or so, that was a lot of money. Well, by then, it was 1 out of 10 people were being diagnosed with cancer, and there were approximately 200,000 a year that were dying from cancer. By the 1990s, it was down to 1 out of 5 who were found with cancer, and now it's actually beginning close to averaging 1 out of 2 people within their lifetime today. Living today, 1 out of 2 will most likely experience cancer within their lifetimes. Okay. And we're now up to over 500,000 people a year are now dying from cancer. So the war on cancer is not being won, not in any way, shape, or form. They say you're doing well if you can go 5 years in remission. Of course, they know that most cancer will raise its head again within 5 years. They say after 5 years, it's a new cancer. I don't really accept that. All right. So at our clinic, one of the big differences that we do is that we treat cancer in a holistic or complementary or integrative fashion. We work with other doctors, other MDs, and we will do that. And we will support patients. Patients can come to us and they can go, well, we want you to be our primary and do all the work for us. We don't want to do surgery. We don't want to do chemo. We don't want to do radiation. And we will treat those patients. And then there's times when patients will go, okay, you know what? I want surgery, but I don't want to do chemo and radiation. I want you to back us up. I want you to do that instead. And we will do that. Where I draw the line, I will not support patients. I will draw the line is when they say, I want to do the surgery and I want to do chemo radiation, but then I want you to back us up. And that's where we say no. That's purely from experience. I've been in medical practice now this month, 19 years, and I have seen very little success trying to support a patient who is currently in radiation and or chemotherapy. Usually what we have found in our experience, and it doesn't happen all the time, is some people win the lottery and they do well. But I find that most people will usually die from the radiation or chemotherapy. And when we try to support them during that, it's just a losing battle. We try to support them nutritionally. We try to support the immune system, but our hands are pretty much tied. And so we kind of back out at that point and go, there's really not a whole lot we can do. But we do get quite a number of patients coming to the clinic. And so what we do is we try to support it in a holistic or integrative fashion. You want to go to your other doctor? Absolutely. We will support them. We will work with them. You want to do surgery? That's your choice. But we do get patients who come to the clinic and absolutely do not want to do anything. They don't want to do surgery. They don't want to do chemo radiation. So we actually do the whole thing. And what are those protocols? One of the biggest things we do is nutrition. Even the American Cancer Society, the World Health Association, they all say that in the end, dietary is one of the largest parts of any program, and we actually espouse diet. Okay, for now, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody because we're getting too much paperwork, too much moving around. So I'll let you know when we unmute it. So if you'd like to, you can ask questions then. All right. So we do espouse a vegan diet during the program. I personally am one of only 2 doctors in Northern California area who is a vegan. And I'm actually a raw vegan, so I do not even go for cooked food. We have a 100% success rate within the clinic when the patients follow the program with cancer. That's the diet, but diet's not all of it. We also have a series of holistic medications that we use that have excellent, excellent results. But something else that I have absolutely enjoyed adding into the clinic with our cancer patients as well as others is reflexology. All right, and the good news is this is actually spreading. It used to be that reflexology was really just starting to be well known. Insurance companies and other medical authorities would not go for it, would not go for reflexology. It's one of those airy-fairy things, and it's all new age and it has no bearing. Well, the good news is that study after study after study is now confirming that reflexology does have a significant medical value, that it actually does have a great value even in the course of treatments for cancer patients. One exciting thing is, for example, they are a very well-known cancer institute, the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute out of Boston, Massachusetts. They now have an on-staff reflexologist who works specifically with their cancer patients. And Dana-Farber Cancer Institute themselves are finding that they are having significant progress with reflexology being used in conjunction with integrative medicine, using conventional as well as complementary. One of the things that's found that reflexology does for cancer patients is that it helps reduce the stress, the fatigue, and the nausea. Because most patients that are at these types of institutes, they are indeed going through chemotherapy. They are going through radiation, and those cause significant stress and fatigue and nausea and pain. Reflexology has been found to be very successful in relieving all of those. And so it's nice to see well-known cancer institutes are beginning to employ reflexologists to support what they do, to support the other treatments. Plus, what we find also is sometimes it's fear, because people are very afraid, they're very sick, but sometimes because of the culture, some people just don't respond well to full body touching. For example, during cancer, one of the things we really promote with our patients is getting lymphatic massage. It is extremely important, and we'll talk about this a lot more later in the hour here. Lymphatic massage is incredibly important during cancer treatments. I don't care whether you're doing conventional or complementary. I have seen cases myself where the cancer dies so fast, which is a wonderful thing. It's a blessing, but it also can appear like a curse. I have seen where the cancer died so rapidly that the lymphatic system was not capable of handling the load. I've seen one case where the gentleman that we were treating, his cancer died so fast, he ended up with massive water retention, lymphedema, because his body could not handle it. For those that are not aware, your body has two types of circulatory systems. One is the blood, okay? The other is the lymphatic. The lymphatic kind of resides alongside the blood circulatory system. The lymphatic system is your garbage system. It's your sewer system along with your colon. All right. The blood has a pump. That's the heart. The lymphatic system does not have an inbuilt pump. The only way it moves is if you move. And one of the big problems in cancer patients is very often they are non-ambulatory. They are bedridden. They cannot move. And so what is required is that we get them moving, whether that be lymphatic massage, moving their arms and legs, basically coming in every day and doing some kind of physical therapy to keep the body moving, because they can die simply from the lymphatic system being overwhelmed. And so one important thing is to keep the lymphatic system moving. Well, there are people out there, and I understand, we've experienced them, that do not like being touched. They don't like full body touching. But what has been found is they will accept reflexology. I may not want you touching me all over, but I'll let you touch my feet. And that is actually not terribly uncommon. They will let you touch their feet. And one thing that we have found at our clinic, at the American Cancer Institute, at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, has been found that, yes, indeed, reflexology will actually help move the lymphatic system along without actually having to come up over the body. There are points on reflexology, and we'll be including these in the PDFs. They'll be posted soon. For those that have bought the lectures here, we will be posting the PDF soon. The PDFs will include a lot of the information I'm talking about now, along with charts, foot charts, so you can actually see where I was talking about. Excuse me. So there are points within reflexology that you can actually use, for those that are not familiar with reflexology, that actually will stimulate the lymphatic system. Okay, and as our job as reflexologists, we get in there and we actually use those points to get the patient's reflexology moving, like to get their lymphatic system moving. Because if that moves, then that means the cancer can die more effectively, meaning we can treat it more aggressively, because we know this is the body will get rid of it. we'll be able to release it and excrete it. All right, so it has a wonderful place for those that simply don't like to be touched. All right, and it's a great way of still activating those organs. Because again, for those that this is their first time with the lecture, reflexology is a system of pressure points and a modality that we do on the feet, the hands, and the ears that allows us to reach into the nerves. The nerves are not at the surface. We have to actually push down into the muscles to reach those nerves. The feet are basically the mirror of the body. It has been done through multiple case studies that finds that every body system in your body, every organ system, the nerves, there is a nerve ending at your feet. And if we know where that mapping's at, and if we press that area in the proper way, we will actually stimulate those nerve organs. So without actually having to come up here and work on the heart, we can actually do it at the feet. Without working on the lungs, we can work on the feet. We can work on the lymphatic organs on the feet. So that you actually get the benefits, basically in some ways, you get the benefits of a full body massage at the feet. Now, there is a big difference between massage and reflexology. I'm just saying that there are correlations in how things can be stimulated. So it's been exciting to see how it works within the cancer industry. All right, so again, we have found it's very effective in working with stress, anxiety, nausea from either the radiation or chemotherapy, or simply post-surgery because of the drugs that were used from it and the shock to the body. It also helps wonderfully for those patients who are going through cancer, who have a serious issue sleeping, obviously, through the anxiety, depression, through the drugs, through healing from radiation. It has been found that reflexology works very well, and the patients have noted, especially like at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, patients note that on the days they get to show up at the Institute for their reflexology treatments, their next day or so they feel much better, they sleep better, they're more relaxed, just by integrating reflexology into the protocols. Very, very simple to do this. And the good news is, as I said earlier, more and more insurance companies are beginning to accept reflexology. So good light on the horizon. Okay, here's a great little example. This was a young lady, she was 15 years old from Massachusetts. She started reflexology, and if she was a cancer patient, she'd been going through treatments, and she started having her reflexology done on Tuesdays. And these were her words, she said, "It takes stress away in seconds. Tuesdays are my favorite days at the clinic." She went on to say that reflexology reduces the nausea she sometimes experiences from the treatments and protocols. Anything that we can do in a proactive and palliative manner to aid patients in surviving the treatments themselves, the more likely they're going to recover, the more likely they're going to stick with the protocols that they've been assigned. And so if reflexology can do that, that's a wonderful thing, because one of the biggest things we've seen is that reflexology can relieve or help relieve the side effects from chemotherapy. I am not a big fan of chemotherapy. I've made that very clear with our patients and with other doctors we deal with. Each patient has to make a decision on their own. Unfortunately, chemotherapy, according to an Australian study, only has a 2% efficacy rate. It really, over the course of all, chemotherapy does not have a very high rate of success as far as how well it works over a 5-year period. But chemotherapy is a very popular form of treatment here in the United States. Reflexology has been used wonderfully, very successfully, and at the very bare minimum of relieving the side effects, the nausea, the pain, the discomfort that came with the chemotherapy. All right, and again, when chemotherapy is done, at least certainly during the first procedure, there can be a significant die-off of the cancer during the first treatment. Anything we can do to support the lymphatic system to get this out, the better we're doing. So I'm glad to see it's being used with that. All right, so basically we go on okay, so I've talked about reflexology and lymphedema. Again, one patient I had, and this was a big thing to watch, he came to us with prostate cancer. He'd had it for 16 years. All right, the cancer was just throughout his body. We started doing treatments, we got very aggressive in it, and the cancer, it was wonderful. The cancer died massively, but it died so quickly, and he was already in such a weakened state that it did affect his lymphatic system, and so he started getting a lot of lymphedema. fortunately, through things like reflexology and lymphatic massage, and some holistic protocols, he was able to drop all of the water, and that was wonder to see it happen. That we're able to help kill the cancer quickly and still allow the body in a weakened state to still handle it. The reflexology has a great place in that as well. All right. Again, more and more studies are being done every year for cancer institutes. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute now in case so I'm going to go ahead and unmute now. We can see how it works. I'm going to go ahead and continue talking. But if people can kind of keep their paperwork down and shuffling down, I'll be able to keep the unmute off. I encourage you, we still got over half an hour left. I encourage you that while I continue talking, do not feel you're being rude. Please go ahead and ask me some questions, while we're doing this.
I have a question regarding the patient that you just mentioned.
Okay.
How long did that take, and how many reflexology were?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And the patient that had the massive lymphedema?
Right.
Okay, we're talking a patient that literally had it from his ankles to his chest. It was all the way up here to his breastbone. You could tap on him and it was like hitting a waterbed. It was massive. It took about 6 weeks. And it was so effective between that and holistic medications. We literally had to put a diaper under him every day because it was literally, the water was actually coming out his skin, and it was just like a pool draining. It was an amazing thing to see. Until we started doing lymphatic and reflexology type work, until we started doing the holistic part, it wasn't moving at all. And of course, this was a massive amount of stress on the heart. We started doing these treatments, and it literally just, it's as if he sprung a leak. It just, the lymphatic system started moving, and it just drained. It just completely drained off of him. And I'd say he was starting to get out of danger in about 2 to 3 weeks. In about 6 weeks, it was gone. It was completely gone. So it was quite an amazing thing to see. Great question.
Was reflexology done on a weekly basis or more often?
Every week. Well, actually, in his case, things were being done twice a week. Okay, that was a good question. In general, for example, like Dana-Farber, like our clinic, and I'm sure some others around the world, the general rule of thumb is reflexology is done about once a week. And normal protocols, we usually do reflexology once for most types of issues, once a week for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then we can start backing up. In the case of cancer, it can go once a week for months and months on end, because obviously the treatments for the other protocols don't stop. So the reflexology needs to be in there to support that going on as well. For example, okay, you're going to continue chemotherapy. Well, obviously you're going to need reflexology. As long as you're on chemotherapy, you're going to want to have reflexology so that you can abate the effects, the side effects that you were having during that. Okay. Okay. Shoshana, I think you had a question.
Is there a specific time, like being that reflexology is a detox process, is it okay to do if a client is receiving chemo, is it better to do prior, during, post the actual chemo? What has your experience been?
Oh, are you asking whether you should be doing reflexology during chemo or before or after?
Yes.
Wonderful question. Great question. There was a rumor, a thing going around that reflexology is so wonderful at detoxing that it will cause you to lose the chemotherapy drugs before they can become effective. And it is true. Chemotherapy is very effective at helping the body detox. For example, whenever we do reflexology on a patient, okay, or other reflexologists doing them on clients, you are supposed to tell your patients or clients, when you're done, when I'm done with you, you go and you drink a lot of water, because you will detox. And I've had a patient one time, I mentioned in an earlier lecture, I had a patient, I did his reflexology on Wednesday, and then he called me on Friday and he said, Doc, he said, I've been doing it with him for some months. He called me on Friday and he said, Doc, on Thursday I got so sick. And the day after the reflexology, and I said, you didn't drink enough water. He said, apparently not, because as soon as I started drinking water, it got better. So people go, who don't understand will go, oh, well, if you're doing chemotherapy, don't do reflexology because you'll dump the toxins. Okay, that has been proven time and time again that it will not happen. That chemotherapy is so strong, so toxic. Reflexology will not get it out of your system. So Dana-Farber, example, the National Cancer Institute, they all espouse the fact reflexology is completely safe during chemotherapy. The time that you're doing chemotherapy, you can also do reflexology. You will not negate the effects of the chemotherapy. What you will negate, hopefully, are the side effects that you will get from it. So that was a wonderful question because some people are afraid of getting reflexology because it's so efficient. But the reason I will generally, I would do reflexology on patients who are in chemotherapy. I will do nothing else for them because it's a losing battle between me and the chemotherapy. I'm not going to win against that. And I watch patients die, from the chemo. So I would support a patient. So I guess I will backpedal a little bit on what I said earlier. I will support a patient on chemotherapy with reflexology, but that's pretty much as far as I'll go. I've tried to support them nutritionally. I've tried to support them with holistic medications. The problem is the chemotherapy is so powerful and it's so deadly that it just doesn't work out otherwise. But yes, reflexology during chemotherapy is an amazing thing. Well, I don't agree with chemotherapy. I tell patients, if you're going to do something, do it. If you're going to accept a protocol, do it. And reflexology will at least encourage people to try to at least follow through with whatever they're doing, because it sure is nice when you don't feel as much nausea and pain and sleeplessness and issues of that nature. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, again, just kind of let me know, wave your hand so I can make sure I click to your window if you want to ask a question, but we'll go ahead and continue on. But please feel free to ask questions. These have been great. These two questions were great questions. I encourage them. Remember, always challenge your doctor. Always ask questions. Okay, all right. So another thing was the National Cancer Institute. This was an exciting study. The National Cancer Institute did a breast cancer study and found that it was indeed that reflexology, and this is just in the case of breast cancer, was able to actually relieve the symptoms that they were going through, the cancer and through the chemotherapy. That reflexology through the National Cancer Institute did find that it did help relieve the symptoms that these cancer patients are going through. And this is another one. This was a recent study. A recent large-scale randomized study of reflexology offered the strongest evidence yet that it can indeed help cancer patients manage their symptoms and their daily tasks. This study investigated reflexology as a complement to standard cancer treatment. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not a big proponent of standard cancer treatments. I'm on the holistic side, but it is nice to see when other doctors are more willing to be more integrative or holistic and are willing to say, you know what, chemo, radiation, and surgery are not the end-all be-all, that there are other complements that can be brought in and used. And reflexology is actually one of those that there are now being multiple case studies and trials being done for that. Well, this study involved 385 women undergoing chemotherapy or hormonal therapy for advanced stage breast cancer. All right, so this is advanced stage, where the cancer had already spread, it already metastasized, it had spread beyond their breasts. Okay, the women were randomly assigned to one of three groups. One group was treated by a certified reflexologist. Now keep in mind, all these women underwent standard cancer treatments, but randomized, there were some that received reflexology and some didn't. So one group was treated by a certified reflexologist. Another group received foot massage that was meant to act as a placebo, so it was not reflexology. Okay, and the third group received only standard cancer treatments. So one gets reflexology, one gets a fake reflexologist, and the third got nothing, just cancer treatments in general. Okay. All right, so let's see. The participants were surveyed about their symptoms at intake and at the time that they started the program, and after 5 weeks and after 11 weeks of undergoing this. The researchers found that those in the reflexology group experienced significantly, and this is huge, significantly less shortness of breath, which is a common symptom with breast cancer patients. Okay, and perhaps due to the improved breathing, they were also better able to perform their daily tasks such as going up and down a flight of stairs, getting dressed, or simply going grocery shopping. All right, so they actually found, now it is interesting that they note the shortness of breath, because one of the things that we find that's valuable for cancer patients, there's a certain thing we can do that's called a lung massage on the foot. All right, it is very specific. You can do it for any patient, but it seems to do cancer patients a world of good by doing this particular type of massage, and it's literally called the lung massage or the lung press. And it actually, so isn't it interesting that doing something on the feet causes the lungs to be more relaxed, to be more efficient, and those in the reflexology group actually had a relief of their symptoms and were able to breathe easier, therefore helped many other things that they were going through. So those are some of the, a little bit of the history. Those are some of the things that are currently going on to this day. Let me talk a little bit about my personal experience. Okay, oh, sure, go ahead, Shoshana.
That case, is that going to be listed in the paperwork that you send us?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That research paper, will you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that will be, thank you, great. That will actually be in the PDF that everybody will be receiving.
Thank you.
Great, great question, yes.
And one other question, do you have any results after the 11 weeks?
In this particular study, they didn't list anything else, but in the PDF, because I'll be able to do a little bit more in the PDF, there'll be things in the PDF that I'm actually not talking about today. Okay. One of the biggest things I like to do in the PDFs is to give you information that I don't have time to do during this part, because I love questions. I absolutely love questions, and so I can do the same lecture twice, but because of different participants, the lecture will be different every time. And I have a tendency to get very intelligent questions, so I appreciate that. In the PDF, there will be a listing of not only the results of these studies, but who actually did the studies, who funded them, things of that nature. So you'll actually then be able to go forward and find them yourself and see the actual clinical trials. So I will be including that as well. All right, okay. Personal experience, like I said, I talked about the one patient with lymphedema. We have another patient. She came in with stage 4 uterine cancer. All right. It was interesting how we found it in the first place. This is something I really want to impress upon people, if nothing else. There's 2 things that you should always know about doctors. One, we work for you, not the other way around. You are the boss. We are not the bosses. We work for you. Always feel open to asking us questions, to challenging us. Now, we do appreciate the respect of our schooling, but you also have the right to ask questions, because this is your body. You need to know what's going on. So I had a patient come to me. This was about a year and a half ago. She came. And she actually showed up at the clinic for nothing more than psoriasis. She had a really bad case of psoriasis and a few other little issues. So I said, okay, we treat psoriasis. That's fine. That's okay. We have no problem with that. And she said, oh, by the way, before I leave, will you check something on me? And it was, she said, I've got this spot, this little lump in my lower right abdomen. She said, I just don't know what it is. She said, I went to my other doctor and they poked it and said, it's just a fatty cyst. And she said, I just don't feel right. I have found over 19 years of practice that we don't know everything. Hence the reason it's called a practice. We are always practicing. And I tend to trust patients in their own skins. Even though we may not, as doctors, see what the problem is, in the end, they tend to be right, okay, very often. Yeah, there can be those that and we understand they can be very fear-based, and they're scared. and they kind of let their thoughts run away with themselves, and we do our best to try to show them things are fine. But very often the patients are right. She was a prime example of it. We went through her appointment. I said, all right, let's go check it out. So we went to the exam room, and we do ultrasound diagnostics. And we generally do them at no charge for patients because when patients do labs for us, such as ultrasounds and EKGs, you're actually doing me a favor because you're giving me something to work with. It's my job is to find out what is the root cause. That's what naturopathic medicine is to get to the root cause of the problem and treat it holistically. Well, we took her into the exam room, and I palpated it, checked it. I've been around a lot of cancer for a lot of years, and I knew as soon as I touched it, this did not feel right. This was not appropriate. So I said, okay, you try to keep the poker face. I said, let's go ahead, and she was laying there. I said, let's go ahead and ultrasound. And I ultrasounded it. Did not like what I saw. And by now, she can see that I'm not a real happy camper at this point. I said, all right, this is not normal. This is not what we usually look at seeing. I said, let me go ahead and let's run some blood tests, and we'll see what they come back. And of course, her and her husband were there, and they said, we want to know. I said, well, it doesn't look good, but I said, let's go forward. Let's do the blood tests. And it came back uterine cancer. It was horrendous. Her entire abdominal cavity was filled with tumors. It was just packed with tumors. So she got very upset with her other doctor. And she ran back there, and they were ticked off. Her and her husband, they said, you said this was nothing more. And their interaction had been months. So she's already lost months of possible treatment. And she said, you said it was only a fatty cyst, and this other doctor's found cancer. They reran all the labs I did, and they freaked out. They realized they were wrong. It was cancer. And then they poured the pressure on this lady. They said, okay, this is bad. We got to do this and this and this. And they went ahead and did a biopsy, and it came back all cancer is bad, but this one, some cancers you can outlive. Some cancers this, some cancers you can do some minor treatments and you'll be okay. This one was a very, very bad cancer. And she was not going to do well with this. They said, we got to immediately do surgery. Well, they came back and asked me. And I said, well, you've got to make your own decisions here. I said, I do this and this and this. You need to decide. I said, I will support you if you come to me completely. I will support you if you go get surgery. I said, if you go any further than that, I said, I have to bow out and you just work with your other doctor because I will not work with, except for reflexology, I will not work with chemo or radiation. So she wanted to do the complete blood with us. Her husband, of course, for fear, said, well, why can't we do the surgery and then come back and not do chemo and radiation? And so she agreed. That did not go well. Okay, not that that can't go well. The cancer had already gotten very late stage. When they opened her up, because I got them again right after the surgery, when they opened her up, her abdominal cavity was just packed with cancer. They removed a couple large tumors, but it was packed. They closed her back up. They went ahead and after the surgery and post, they went ahead and said, look, the only thing that's left to do, you are going to die of this if you do not let us do chemo. And this chemo is a very radical kind of chemo. You basically, while on the operating table, they have to open you wide and basically just fill you with the chemotherapy drug. You're just filled, your abdominal cavity is just open and filled with this drug, and they let it sit there. All right. Well, she couldn't do that. They are Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept blood transfusions. And so she asked the doctor, and she said, are we going to do blood transfusions? And he goes, oh, yes, we're going to have to do blood transfusions. I mean, you're basically exposed to the world, and you're just filled with these drugs. She said, I can't do it. My religion says I can't do this. He said, you will die if you do not do this, because by that point, they'd staged it at stage 4. And they said, you will die. You will be dead from this. She said, well, thank you very much, but I cannot do this. And, of course, that only made them angry. You've got to do this, and they walked out. Came back to the clinic, we went over everything, and I said, all right. I said, here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and start you on our full cancer program because she was still full of tumors. We had an MRI done. So which was beautiful is I'm a very lab kind of guy. I know some naturopaths are not. I'm a very lab kind of guy. I love before and afters because it's so often true that when a patient gets cured of something that's incurable, the previous doctors will go, well, then they never had it. Okay, then they must not have ever had the disease. So what we love to do is we love before and after labs. We love showing they have it, and then we love showing they don't. All right, so we have actual medical proof. So we had MRIs that showed massive amount of tumors. I also told her that during the course of treatments with us, we would go ahead and do, excuse me, a little bit of a sinus. We would go ahead and we would do ultrasounds, and we would actually monitor and we would measure the size of the tumors throughout the course of treatments. So we did that. Part of the thing that should always be, my opinion, is lymphatic massage, though they weren't too big in the lymphatic massage because, again, that is a lot of touching. So reflexology is a valuable tool. Reflexology also allows you to keep the lymphatic system moving because we watched the cancer die off quickly. Every month she kept coming back to the clinic. Every month we kept doing treatments with her. And then she would come in between for things like such things as reflexology, that kind of thing we would do. But once a month we would have one official visit where we would rerun the ultrasounds, we would rerun blood work, and lo and behold, as the months went by, through ultrasound, the tumors kept shrinking, kept shrinking, kept shrinking. We would run blood tests about every 2-3 months. Her cancer markers kept dropping, kept dropping, kept dropping. Her weight dropped. She looked beautiful. She said she was in the best health she's ever been in. Her hair was gorgeous and beautiful. So this kept going and kept going and kept going until we ran I think it was about 6 months in, we had another MRI done. The cancer was still there, but it was much smaller. So around January of this year, we did our regular ultrasound, and for the first time, I could not find anything. I could not find anything in there. Now, I looked at her and I said, don't get your hopes too high, because something as simple as abdominal gas will hide things. And so just because I don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. We were consistent always finding it, but I don't want to say, hey, 100% we're good. I went ahead and said, you know what? Let's go ahead and get an MRI done now. Okay, and because I don't like them done too much because it is a very powerful drug. And here we have a patient going through cancer treatment, and now we go give them another drug, which is a very powerful drug during MRI with contrast. But I knew we could help her detox from it. And an MRI with contrast without is like a clear picture versus a blurry picture. And if we're going to say you're free of cancer, we better darn well see a really clear picture. So we agreed to an MRI with contrast. She went ahead and did it. First time in a year, came back, we couldn't find anything on the MRI, the ultrasound, we couldn't find anything. Her cancer markers were going down in the normal range. So we're actually, at this point, we're still working with her, but we see her about every 2 to 3 months now, and we're actually getting ready to release her. She went from stage 4 to stage 0, and now we can't find anything at all. And again, reflexology can be a very major component in this whole thing. There's anything that we can do. Again, I mentioned in the previous, so don't think this about reflexology. I mentioned in the previous webinar that we did that reflexology is not usually recommended to be a substitute for medical treatment, that you shouldn't diagnose with it, but again, being a doctor, it helps. But reflexology is best used in chronic situations in conjunction with other therapies, be they conventional or complementary or alternative. Reflexology is great for acute situations by itself. You got a cold, you got a headache, we need to help other things. There's a lot of acute, meaning momentary situations or situations that we're working with to relax, to clear the lymphatic system. It's great. But in long-term chronic issues, reflexology shines best when it's being used with other protocols. Just like most other protocols don't stand on their own. They are best used together in an integrative way. So we have found at our clinic that reflexology works best, especially in chronic, and that's the main type of thing we use at the clinic. It's best used in conjunction with other types of protocols. Yes?
Question on, you mentioned your full cancer program. Obviously that includes the weekly or 2 times a week reflexology, and the other things are, can you tell a little bit what the other things are within your full cancer program?
Oh gosh, no, that's a company secret. No, of course I can.
Uh,
No, absolutely. No problem. All right, here is our basic, and again, I'm giving you a basic overview of what we do. All right. Um, Obviously, every patient is different, but overall, there's some very strong similarities. Because we are, okay, let's talk about this from the level of you choose not to do surgery, you choose not to do chemo, you choose not to do radiation. But you know what? That's even true even if you do surgery, because most surgeries will tell you that they don't catch it all and they have to then proceed with chemo and radiation. So I guess it really doesn't matter. You come to our clinic and you choose to go on the full cancer program. What we do, and this actually, I'm going to let you know right up front, and this is an important thing to be aware of. 7 out of 10 cancer patients to come to our clinic never come back after the first visit. 7 out of 10 never come back after the first visit, meaning the initial consultation. Here's what we look over their labs, because I like to see labs. I like to see proof that this is what's going on. I have seen a lot of misdiagnoses. In the case of cancer, I've rarely ever seen a misdiagnosed. Okay, so they come in here, we look at it, we go over it, we say, okay, this is what we can do. Only basically 30% of the time do they return for the programs. The reason is because we are holistic. Holistic means natural and safe. Okay, natural, but it also means whole body. For example, if someone has, like in her case, she had uterine cancer. We don't treat it, well, we'll treat the uterine cancer, but we also treat the whole body because it is meant to be treated in a whole body or balanced way. Cancer, by its very nature, states that is a systemic failure within the body, the systemic failure of the immune system. I had a patient show up last year, and she was very adamant. She said, I'm very healthy, I just have cancer. And I said, no, you're not. I know. I said, no, you're not. She said, my doctor told me you can be healthy and still have cancer. And I said, no, you can't. I said, the very fact of cancer states that there is something very seriously wrong with your body. Almost every day, almost everyone on earth is exposed to cancer. It is a errant mutation, something that occurs. If you have a strong immune system, your immune system looks at us and goes, that's not good, knocks it out. The fact that cancer took hold so that your immune system was not able to withstand it, was not strong enough, that is not a natural or normal state of being. Therefore, you are not healthy if you have cancer. All right. So in our protocols, what chases most people away is the fact that we say we are holistic, meaning we have amazing holistic medications. We use one now at the clinic. It just recently came out of China. It's a holistic medication. It's an herb that comes out of China. It went through a 5-year clinical trial study with Johns Hopkins University. So for Johns Hopkins University to look at an herb and spend 5 years of trial studies on it says something about Johns Hopkins. It was found to be as effective as methotrexate, which is a chemotherapy drug but without the side effects, and that it causes cancer to commit apoptosis. Apoptosis means it causes cancer cells, not normal cells, but cancer cells to commit suicide. So the herb itself causes cancer cells to trigger suicide, and they die. Okay, so we have holistic medications. We talk about exercise. We talk about sunshine. We talk about fresh air. We talk about physical therapy. We also talk about reflexology. We also talk about diet. And diet is what usually turns the patients away. Dr. Christopher, again, I talked about him earlier. He's a world-famous naturopathic doctor. He was huge like we are. Like I said, I am not just a traditional naturopath. I am also a certified nutritionist and certified reflexologist. I believe that nutrition should be 90% of any program. I don't care if you come into the clinic with a hangnail. You should be having a better lifestyle, a better dietary regime. America is actually one of the poorest educated countries in the world. That's why it's called SAD, the Standard American Diet. It's extremely poor. Hence the reason, part of the reason we see such a great uptick of cancer in this country. So we don't care if you come in with a hangnail, you should be eating better. So we are very strict. Since you asked, we are very strict at the clinic. We insist that you come in for your monthly appointments. We insist that you take the holistic medications as prescribed. We also insist, we don't ask you to do it immediately, but we work your way up. And any nutritional counseling at our clinic is done for free. We expect you to become a vegan during the term of the program. For those that don't know, vegan means you are on a complete plant-based diet. Okay, Mary Tyler Moore, who's really adorable. Mary Tyler Moore was a vegan, for those that are old enough to remember Mary Tyler Moore, a very famous actress. One time, I think I mentioned this before, Mary Tyler Moore was a longtime vegan. She was interviewed one time on TV, and the journalist said, "Mary, I understand you're a vegan." She said, she smiled, "Yes, I am." She said, "What's a vegan?" Mary gave the best definition of vegan I've ever heard in my life. If it, meaning food, if it comes from something that had a face, I don't eat it. All right, so we insist and we will educate for free. To educate the patients, we will supply food journals, menu plans, recipes. We bring food into the clinic for the patients to try. If you go on a cancer program with our clinic, you will go vegan or we will not treat you. Why do we do that? Because it has been found, the American Cancer Society, the World Health Organizations, the USDA, they have found that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet for the American people, for any human. One of the reasons is because it highly promotes high alkalinity within the body. Okay. For people that aren't really aware of this, the body has to be, there is an acid-alkaline balance that occurs within the body. All right. It has been proven in cancer lab after lab after lab around the world that cancer cells do not thrive well in an alkaline environment. They thrive in an acidic environment, but not in an alkaline one. Okay, your pH should be between a 7 and a 7.5. Our cancer patients, we will push up to about an 8 or so. That literally helps stunt the cancer. But the average patient that comes in the clinic, they come in and their pH is a 5 or 6. That's very acidic. Because of the standard American diet, it is highly acid reacting. All you're doing is promoting a wonderful environment for cancer to grow in. So as part of the protocol, we insist, and actually what ends up, those patients that follow the program 100%, who follow it through, who don't give up and don't quit, we've seen 100% results, 100% success dealing with the cancer. So they have to go on a vegan diet, though we work them up to it. They have to do the monthly visits. They have to do the medications. The medications are all holistic or all herbal-based. Okay, we actually supply the patients with the clinical trial studies done, not by herbalists or naturopaths, but by places like China, by Germany, by Harvard University, by Johns Hopkins University. We do those. Patients that opt for reflexology, yes, we have them come in once a week. We have them come in once a week for the treatments. That may go on for a couple of months. And then as we notice that the blood starts showing the cancer markers are dropping, as their health is improving, we start backing off on the number of treatments. I don't generally do treatments twice a week for cancer because it does stimulate the organs. It does stimulate detox. It does stimulate the lymphatic system, which is a wonderful thing. But it is, the word is stimulating. While it might be relaxing, it is also stimulating to the internal organs. And you can have cancer die off too quickly. And so we try to be aggressive while still trying to maintain that, we do it within the potential of the body's capability of handling it. All right, so every week for those that opt for reflexology, they do that, and otherwise it's once a month. Please. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. I'm not. Okay, I think your mic is off. There we go.
My mic is off. So on the once a week session, reflexology session, you work on the entire body, but just the emphasis is on, like you said, the lymph and certain areas.
Okay, great question. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to get to that. Okay. Because it is holistic, whenever we do a reflexology on any patient, but let's talk about cancer patients. Because it is holistic, holistic means whole body, we work, figuratively speaking, from head to toe. We work on all body systems. We give every body system a certain amount of attention. But, very good what you just said. Depending on the type of cancer, we will work a little bit harder. We will spend more time on those. For example, a reflexology treatment can be as short as 30 minutes. We don't really believe in that. They should be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. For cancer patients, as they get stronger, we try to do it about an hour at a time. Okay, but again, this is a wonderful thing that the Dana-Farber National Cancer Institute, they have found that reflexology is completely safe for cancer patients. Even on the most frail and fragile of patients, it can be done on. So if you think you're going to break your patient or your client, you're not going to. Okay, so even on the most fragile cancer patients, the institutes have found it is very safe to do it. So we work on all the body systems, but let's say, for example, that it's lung cancer. All right, we will work on the entire system, but we will also focus, we will give extra time on the lungs. Uterine cancer, we will give more time on the reproductive. And you will notice that if you are a reflexologist or you are receiving reflexology treatments, you will notice that when the reflexologist or a user reflexologist, when you focus on those areas, they can be very painful. They can be. So if it's uterine cancer, boy, the uterus and those areas, those points can hurt. Those reflex points can hurt. And you go, okay, I'm going to have to do this. But don't send them screaming into the night. Tell them it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to hurt, but we're going to work within your range of being able to handle it, your capabilities. So we do whole body. We give attention to all the systems. We give attention to the specifics that their cancer is for. And if we know that there's been metastasis, for example, a couple of areas that we give, no, 3 areas also that we give attention to, whether it has metastasized to it or not. I really should say 4. One is the lymphatic system. There are several lymphatic points, reflex points on the feet. We give special attention to those because we obviously want to stimulate it and keep it moving. Cancer die-off, we don't want it backing up. Another one we focus really heavily on is the liver. Okay, whether it's metastasized there or not, put a lot of attention to the liver. The liver is your main detox organ. It is the main chemistry kit of your body. If the liver fails, it's over. It is over. Okay, you can lose a kidney, you can lose a spleen, you can cut the liver up, but the liver fails, it's over with. So we work on the liver pressure points because we want it to be working at its height. We want it to be working great. So the 2 other points we focus on as well, we give special attention to. So whole body, we give attention to. Specifics to the cancer, we give attention to. Then the other parts we give specific attention, like I said, lymphatic, the liver, the colon, because if the colon doesn't work, nothing else works. You got to keep the colon moving. I'll tell you a story about that in a second. And the last one are the kidneys. Work hard on the kidneys. The kidneys, if they don't get attention, they can easily fail from being overwhelmed. Okay, the kidneys are, you'd be surprised, the ureters that come down from the kidneys to the bladder, they're hardly bigger than a hair, and just pinch it and they break. They are so fragile, they are so tiny. The kidneys do so much work that if they're not supported between them and the liver, they can become overwhelmed. So focus hard on those. The colon is such an important area. Dr. Christopher, again, we'll go back to him. He said that probably 90% of all ills in the body start in the colon first. Okay. I don't care if you have brain cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, if you have pancreatic cancer, it all started in the colon first. If the colon doesn't work well, and its job is to get a lot of these toxins out, it will over time eventually back up. So one of the things we find with our cancer patients, not so much skin cancer, but most of the times with colon cancer, bladder cancer, uterine cancer, you pretty much name it, when a patient comes in and they agree to do the program with us, this is kind of fair warning for those that try to do holistic. When they come in and they want to do the full program and they do it, you are going to, during the first few weeks of the program, you are going to be going to the bathroom. Okay, most people only go to the bathroom just a few times a week. For most Americans, if they're going to the bathroom at least once a day, they're doing amazing as far as they're concerned. What most people don't know is you should be having a bowel movement for every meal of the day. You have 3 meals a day, you should be pooping 3 times a day, and most Americans do not. So when they suddenly are going to the bathroom a lot, they think something's wrong, because you have to build the house from the ground up with cancer. So I had one particular elderly man. He was 80 years old, and I understand. He was 80 years old, and he had advanced bladder cancer. He came to us. He did not want to do chemo. He didn't want to do radiation. He didn't want to do surgery. He came to us and said, I just want to work with you. I said, all right. And we're blessed. Within, I think, about 9 months, it was gone. The bladder cancer was completely gone. We were blessed. We were very pleased about it. Okay. But you got to remember, 80-year-old man comes from a bit older school, much more independent. I told him, I warned him, I said, when you're on this, you're going to be going to the bathroom, because years and years, decades and decades of backup is basically going to be coming out. Well, about a week, or I think it was only about between 4 days and a week of the program, he called me and said, Doc, something's wrong. He said, this is really, really bad. He said, not only am I going to the bathroom a lot, he said, I'm not making it to the bathroom. He said, I'm spoiling before I ever get to the bathroom. And an 80-year-old man, I get this. That is a very humbling thing. They have a lot of pride, and I get that. He said, this is not working. I said, I'm sorry, and I totally understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate it. But I said, please bear with me. And as the old cliche goes, this too shall pass. This will stop happening. Give it another week or two, and you will have gotten through the worst of it. And sure enough, in about another week or so, because we were seeing him once a month, but we allow all of our patients to keep in contact with us. I allow them to have my email, so they actually can email me and let me know during the month how they're doing, because I don't want a month to go by and find out they had a problem and they didn't tell me. I want to know. About a week later, after doing that, he came back and he said, Doc, you're all right. He said, I've stopped pooping. I'm down to it. He said, I'm doing it multiple times a day, but I now have full control over it again. And I said, this is a wonderful thing. You have to get it out of your system. And he did. And 80 years old with advanced bladder cancer, and it went away, completely went away. Not verified just by me, but by other doctors as well, because he was VA. And we all verified that his bladder cancer was gone with nothing more than complementary treatments, reflexology types of things, that type of stuff. So, does that answer your question in a very long-winded way? Okay, good. All righty. Does anybody else have any more questions before we tie this up? I want to give anybody a little bit more chance if they want to have any more questions before we're done.
In terms of the protocols, I missed the first classes. Is there access to them?
Okay, I'm not sure what you're asking.
From what I understood, the second class in this series had a lot of protocols.
Oh, okay. The protocols were more, okay, the protocols in the second one was reflexology healing techniques. Okay, that one was more, while it was still great for lay folks, it was more intended for those who do reflexology, and maybe you are a reflexologist. So we discussed more of the techniques in reflexology that we did. And so that particular episode does have those in there.
So
I'd like to, if I may say one thing here, Shoshana, and for anyone else that might be interested, I'm the admin secretary and on the board of directors of RAC, Reflexology Association of California. So
nice
hello everyone, because I've been communicating with you. And I do want to say that we will have on the website available for purchase the entire series. So if you just purchase the one and you would like to see the others, you will have the opportunity to do that.
You.
My goal by the end of this weekend, I'm hoping to have the PDFs, the written part, all done. I'm hoping by the end of this weekend or so to have all of those done. And then RAC will obviously make sure that everyone has access to all the PDFs and the videos. Everything we're doing here is being recorded. And so you'll have those that care to purchase them, they'll have access to the recordings as well as the PDFs as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Is there any more questions before we start tying this up? Okay. I enjoyed this very much, and I always love questions. They tend to be very intelligent questions, so I appreciate it very much. This, again, is the last of the series of 3. If you're interested, please contact the Reflexology Association of California to see if you want to participate in any further. There will be more webinars in the future. And it was a joy working with all of you, and I look forward to hearing back from you. Any feedback I would be most interested in hearing, and if you have more questions, please, you can direct questions through the Reflexology Association. I'd be happy to help any way I can. All right?
Can I ask a question?
All right.
Okay, I'm a cancer survivor, and
Good for you.
I'm wondering, I didn't do any chemo or any of that garbage, but I'm just wondering, like I had breast cancer first, and then I got lung cancer after.
Right.
They're 2 primary cancers. But now I have silicone, because I had implants put in. I have silicone throughout my lymph system. And it's showing up as, it's showing up as on a PET scan as hot spots for cancer. I'm wondering, can you work so when you do reflexology, that all that's in the lymph system, it'll push to other lymph nodes, won't it?
Okay, great question. Okay, again, reflexology, because this would be considered a chronic long-term issue. Okay, not acute, meaning it's just there momentarily and it just showed up. Reflexology in itself should not be used all by itself. It should be used with other modalities. If I were in your particular situation, or I was treating a patient such as you, I basically would put that patient on a detox, on a program to where we would basically help the lymphatic system. There are holistic medications that will actually help it drain it out. Reflexology is a powerful tool in there. You got to remember that if we're stimulating the lymphatic system, we're stimulating the entire lymphatic system. And so it doesn't just push it from one and get clogged up. For anybody that lives in LA or ever been to LA, I like to compare the lymphatic system to the 405 highway. Anybody that's been there, they'll understand what it. All right. It's a horrible parking lot. All right. And the lymphatic system for cancer patients basically becomes a 405. It gets these hot spots. It gets blocked up. Between other modalities, with using reflexology as well, it stimulates the entire lymphatic system. So while lymphatic massage is great, and I highly recommend it because we can hit those hot spots, if you're not doing right with lymphatic massage, you are correct. All we do is shift it from one to another. Okay, you know what I mean? Oh, I unblocked here, now it got blocked downstream. So lymphatic massage is important, but reflexology stimulates the entire lymphatic system. So, okay, so let me get it moving out the entire system until it excretes out of the system. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. That was a great question. Very good question, because that is actually the fear of some people. Will I overwhelm my lymphatic system? And reflexology, by its very nature, if it's done right, supports the lymphatic system.
Well, I just did my reflexology, and when I was in the class, they were working on me, and I did find that I did swell up in the arm area where the lymph nodes have that silicone in them.
Right.
So it hurt, and it was very uncomfortable.
Okay, did they inform you, just making sure that you are supposed to drink, because I think you came in later in this session, did they inform you that you were supposed to drink a lot of water afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay, and people think they're drinking a lot of water, but they're usually not. You need to take okay, I'm sorry, do you need something, Patricia?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we do need to wrap up.
Oh, okay,
because
so.
we've gone way over the hour.
Oh, okay, so.
So
Okay,
just,
so we're gonna wrap up. Okay, so answer your question real quick. Take your body weight, divide it by 2. That's the number of ounces you'd be drinking. But when you're in cancer or serious issues, drink even more. All right. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And
Thank
Patricia,
you.
I need to talk to you just for a
Thank
second,
you so
Patricia.
much.
All right. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.